I thought I was doing everything right, working hard, providing for my family, making sure my wife and kids had everything they needed. But nothing prepares you for the moment. Your 7-year-old daughter looks up at you and says, "Daddy, Robert told us he's going to be our new dad now." I stood there, suitcase still in hand, heart racing, trying to process what I just heard. My wife, Sarah, laughed it off, said Robert was just a friend helping around the house while I was away on business. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. What I didn't know was how deep the betrayal ran. When I discovered the truth, not just about the affair, but about what she told our kids, I realized I wasn't just fighting for my marriage. I was fighting for my children, for the truth, and for the family I thought I had. And when the DNA test results arrived, everything changed. If you've ever wondered how far someone can go to destroy the life you built together, or how you can turn that pain into a second chance, this is my story. Stay with me, and if you believe no one should face betrayal alone, subscribe to the channel, because sometimes knowing how to fight back makes all the difference. I always believed that hard work was the foundation of a strong family. Growing up in a modest home on the south side of Chicago, I watched my father juggle 2 jobs just to keep food on the table. I promised myself that when I had a family, they would never have to worry about stability. So when I landed a solid career as a pharmaceutical sales rep, I thought I'd made it not just for me, but for Sarah and our kids. Sarah and I met in college. She was bright, full of life, and had this way of making even the dullest days feel exciting. We married young, full of dreams and promises. When Emma was born, followed by little Noah. 2 years later, our world felt complete. But life isn't a fairy tale. My job required travel, sometimes a few days, sometimes weeks. It wasn't ideal, but it paid well. Every time I packed my bags, Sarah would kiss me goodbye, telling me how proud she was of me, how much she appreciated the sacrifices I made. I believed her. I thought we were a team, me, working to provide her, holding down the fort at home. Sure, over the past year, I noticed she seemed more distracted, glued to her phone, less interested in our usual late-night talks after I got back from trips. But I chalked it up to the stress of raising 2 young kids. I never imagined there was someone else. When I walked through the door after that 2-week trip and Emma mentioned new daddy Robert, my world tilted. At first, I tried to laugh it off, just like Sarah did. Kids have wild imaginations, right? But as the evening went on, little things didn't add up. There was a toolbox by the kitchen counter. I didn't own one like that. A men's jacket hanging on the coat rack. That definitely wasn't mine. I asked Sarah about it, keeping my tone light. She explained that Robert was an old friend, someone handy who offered to help fix a leaky faucet and a few other things around the house while I was gone. It sounded innocent enough, but there was a flicker in her eyes, a hesitation I hadn't seen before. That night I lay awake in bed while she texted beside me, angling her phone away like I wouldn't notice. When I asked who she was talking to, she smiled and said it was just a friend from her book club. The pit in my stomach grew heavier. I wanted to trust her. We had built a life together, 2 beautiful kids, a home, years of shared memories. But something was off, and no matter how much I tried to convince myself otherwise, I couldn't shake the feeling. Over the next few days, I paid closer attention. Sarah was constantly stepping out to take phone calls, lowering her voice when I entered the room. Emma and Noah would mention Robert casually, like he had become part of their daily routine. "Robert makes better pancakes than you, Daddy." Emma giggled one morning. I forced a smile, my heart breaking a little more each time his name came up. I wasn't just losing my wife. I was watching another man slide into the role I had fought so hard to protect. But the worst was yet to come. One evening, Sarah left her laptop open while she went to shower. I wasn't proud of it, but desperation does things to a man. I sat down, opened her email, and what I found shattered any remaining hope I had. Messages, dozens of them, between Sarah and Robert. Not just flirtation, this was deeper. 2 years of secret meetings, shared dreams of a future together, plans to finally make the switch and introduce Robert as the permanent father figure. And then I saw the sentence that nearly made me physically sick. "The kids will adjust fine. They're not really his anyway." I stared at those words, my hands trembling. Had my entire life been a lie? Were Emma and Noah not even mine? In that moment, something inside me broke. but not in the way Sarah might have expected. I didn't confront her. I didn't scream or demand answers. No, I decided to get the truth, because if I was going to lose everything, I needed to know exactly what I was fighting for. From the moment I read those emails, every breath I took felt heavier, like I was suffocating under the weight of betrayal. 2 years. For 2 years, Sarah had been living a double life, smiling at me across the dinner table, while planning a future with another man. And worse, she was preparing my children to accept him as their new father. But the words that haunted me most were still echoing in my head. They're not really his anyway. I couldn't ignore that. I couldn't pretend it was just a bitter lie she told herself to justify the affair. What if, what if it was true? I looked at Emma and Noah differently after that, not with less love, but with a gnawing fear that I might not be their biological father, that everything I'd poured my heart into was built on a foundation of deceit. I knew I had to act, but I couldn't afford reckless moves. Sarah was already manipulating the kids, planting seeds to replace me. If I confronted her too soon, she'd twist the narrative, turn me into the villain before I had a chance to protect what mattered. So I played along. I smiled when I needed to. I kissed her goodbye in the mornings. I read bedtime stories to Emma and Noah, pretending like our world wasn't crumbling beneath us. But behind the scenes, I was preparing for war. The first step was confirming the truth about my children. I ordered discreet DNA paternity tests, swabbed Emma and Noah's cheeks while they slept, my hands shaking as I sealed the envelopes. The waiting was unbearable. Every day felt like walking on a tightrope, knowing one wrong step could send everything crashing down. Meanwhile, I installed a small security camera in the living room, hidden where no one would notice. I needed proof, not just of the affair, but of what Sarah was telling our kids when I wasn't around. It didn't take long. The first time I worked late, I checked the camera footage as soon as I got home. There he was, Robert, sitting on my couch like he owned the place. Sarah curled up next to him, laughing, playing the perfect little family. But what truly broke me was hearing Sarah's voice as she spoke to Emma and Noah. "You know Robert loves you very much," she cooed. "Soon he'll be living here with us all the time. Daddy James is too busy with work to really care about us." And then Robert chimed in. "I'll be your new dad soon, kiddos. We'll have so much fun together." Emma nodded like it was the most normal thing in the world. Noah just smiled. I felt sick. This wasn't just cheating. This was calculated destruction. Sarah wasn't waiting for a divorce to introduce Robert. She was actively erasing me from my children's lives while I was still under the same roof. And I couldn't help but wonder, how long had she been feeding them these lies? How much damage had already been done? Days turned into weeks as I collected more footage, each clip more damning than the last. Then the DNA results arrived. I sat alone in my car, envelope in hand, heart pounding like a war drum. I tore it open, bracing for the worst. And then, relief. Both Emma and Noah were biologically mine. I read the report twice, then a third time just to be sure. The weight that had been crushing my chest lifted, but only slightly, because now I understood something far more sinister. Sarah wasn't lying in those emails because she knew the truth. She believed it. Somewhere along the line, she had tested the kids without my knowledge, and whoever handled that test had given her false results. She had spent years convinced I wasn't their father, and used that lie to justify tearing our family apart. But ignorance didn't excuse what she had done. She chose to cheat. She chose to manipulate our children. She chose to replace me before ever speaking a word of doubt. Now I had everything I needed: proof of the affair, evidence of parental alienation, and the undeniable truth that those kids were mine. I wasn't going to let her finish what she started. The next move was mine, and I was going to make sure it ended on my terms. There's a moment when pain stops feeling sharp and instead becomes something heavier. Numb. That's where I was, sitting alone in my living room late at night, watching the footage of my wife, the woman I had trusted with my heart, wrapped in another man's arms. Listening to her tell my children that their father didn't love them enough to stay. I wasn't angry anymore. I was beyond that. I felt hollow. For weeks I had kept up the charade, pretending I didn't know, smiling through dinners, kissing my kids goodnight while Sarah texted Robert in the next room. But after reading those DNA results, after confirming that Emma and Noah were mine, something inside me shifted. I realized there was nothing left to save. The marriage, the partnership I thought we had was already dead. Sarah had buried it the moment she let Robert into our home, into our children's lives. Now, it wasn't about holding on. It was about protecting what was truly mine, Emma and Noah, and that meant I couldn't afford to hesitate anymore. I remember standing in the doorway that Friday evening watching Sarah as she packed an overnight bag. She said she was going to visit a friend from college. Just a girls' night. She smiled, I nodded, knowing full well Robert's car was parked 2 blocks away waiting for her. As soon as she left, I sat down with my kids. "Hey, buddies!" I began, forcing my voice to stay steady. "Can we talk for a minute?" Emma looked up from her coloring book, and Noah climbed onto the couch beside me. I wanted to tell them everything, to explain how wrong their mother was, how much I loved them, how none of this was their fault. But they were too young to understand the ugliness of betrayal. So instead I said, "You know, I'll always be here for you, right? No matter what anyone says." Emma smiled and nodded, but I could see the confusion in her eyes. The damage Sarah had done was already showing in the way they hesitated when I reached out for a hug. That night, after putting them to bed, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the stack of evidence. I had gathered emails, video clips, the DNA report. This was it. There was no coming back from what I was about to do. On Monday morning, I met with my attorney and filed for divorce. Not just that I filed for full custody. The look on my lawyer's face when I showed him the footage of Sarah manipulating the kids told me everything I needed to know. "We've got a strong case," he said. "Judges don't take kindly to parental alienation, especially with proof like this." But before the legal process could begin, I needed Sarah to know that I wasn't blind anymore. I chose my moment carefully. The next time Robert came over thinking I was working late, I walked through the front door, calm as ever. They were sitting on the couch just like in the videos. Sarah's face went pale the second she saw me. Robert stood up trying to act tough, but I wasn't interested in theatrics. I placed a folder on the coffee table, thick with printed email styles from the video footage and the DNA results right on top. "I know everything," I said quietly, "and so will the court." Sarah's lips parted, searching for words that wouldn't come. Robert glanced at the papers, then back at Sarah, his bravado fading fast. "You lied to me." I heard him mutter, "You said they weren't his kids." That's when it hit her. The realization that her entire narrative, her justification for tearing apart our family, was built on a mistake she never bothered to question. Her eyes filled with tears, but I felt nothing. No pity, no regret. "You need to leave." I told Robert, my voice steady, "Now." He didn't argue. Within minutes, he was gone. Probably for good. Sarah tried to speak, to explain, but I held up my hand. "Save it for your lawyer." I walked away, hearing her sobs behind me, but I didn't look back. Because in that moment, I knew there was no forgiveness, no fixing what she had done. This was the point of no return, and I was ready to see it through to the end. The hardest part wasn't discovering the betrayal. It was staying calm after every instinct in me wanted to scream, to rage, to demand answers. Sarah could never give, but anger wouldn't protect my children, logic would. So I buried the emotion and focused on strategy. The day after I confronted Sarah and watched Robert vanish from our lives, I moved forward like clockwork. There was no point in arguing with her, not when the legal system was where this battle would be won. My attorney had already filed the divorce papers and the motion for full custody. Now it was about building an airtight case, one that left no room for Sarah to manipulate her way out. First, we organized the evidence. The emails detailing the 2-year affair and her intentions to replace me. The security footage showing clear instances of parental alienation. Sarah coaching Emma and Noah to accept Robert as their new father. The DNA test results proving beyond doubt that I was their biological father, despite the false narrative Sarah had convinced herself of. But my lawyer knew that family court wasn't just about facts, it was about perception. Judges care about the emotional well-being of children, about stability and safety. So I made changes. I spoke to my employer and arranged to transition into a remote position. It wasn't easy, but after explaining my situation, they agreed I could still manage my clients virtually, which meant I'd be home for Emma and Noah no more. Long business trips, that was critical. I needed to show the court that I could provide not just financially but emotionally, that I was the parent offering consistency and care. Next, I scheduled appointments with a licensed family therapist, not just for the kids but for myself. I wanted documentation showing that I was proactive in helping Emma and Noah process the confusion and emotional damage Sarah had caused. Meanwhile, Sarah was unraveling. Without Robert to cling to, she swung between denial and desperation. One day, she begged me to reconsider to fix things for the kids. The next, she threatened to fight for custody, claiming I was turning them against her. I didn't engage. Every conversation went through my lawyer. Every interaction was documented. Then came the day of the temporary custody hearing. I remember standing outside the courtroom, watching Sarah fidget nervously beside her attorney. She looked nothing like the confident woman who once thought she held all the power. When the judge called our case, my heart pounded, but I kept my composure. We presented everything. My lawyer walked the court through the timeline of betrayal, the manipulation of the children, and the steps I had taken to create a stable environment. The judge reviewed the footage in silence, the moments where Sarah told Emma and Noah that I didn't care about them, that Robert was their real dad now. I could see the disapproval on his face. Sarah's attorney tried to spin it that she was confused, that she believed I wasn't the biological father, but the DNA results destroyed that argument. When it was over, the judge cleared his throat and delivered the words I'd been praying for. Mr. Wilson, I'm granting you primary custody of Emma and Noah. Effective immediately, Mrs. Wilson will have supervised visitation rights pending her enrollment and progress in parental counseling. I felt a wave of relief so intense it nearly brought me to my knees. Sarah burst into tears, pleading with the judge, but it was done. As we left the courtroom, she tried to speak to me, to apologize, to explain, but I walked past her without a word. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about moving forward. In the weeks that followed, I focused entirely on my kids. We settled into a new routine, just the three of us. I worked from home, made them breakfast every morning, walked them to school, and read bedtime stories at night. Therapy sessions helped peel back the confusion Sarah had planted in their young minds. Slowly, they began to trust again, to understand that I wasn't going anywhere. As for Sarah, she attended her supervised visits twice a week, but the dynamic had changed. The kids were cautious around her, unsure of what to believe anymore. Robert was gone for good. I later heard he'd moved out of state, wanting nothing to do with the fallout. Looking back, I realized that staying silent, gathering evidence, and striking when it mattered was the smartest decision I ever made. Sarah thought she was in control. She thought she could rewrite the story, erase me, and build a new life on lies. But the truth has a way of catching up, and when it did, I was ready. The final court date felt different. This wasn't just about temporary custody anymore. This was the end game. The day the judge would decide the future of my family once and for all. I walked into that courtroom with my head held high, not because I was confident, but because I knew I had done everything I could. I had fought smart. I had fought for my children. Sarah sat across from me, looking like a shadow of the woman I once knew. The months since our separation hadn't been kind to her. Without Robert, without control, she looked lost. Her lawyer tried one last time to paint her as a mother who had simply made mistakes under emotional distress. They argued that she deserved joint custody, that the children needed their mother. But facts don't lie. My attorney laid out the timeline with precision, the affair, the manipulation, the emotional harm inflicted on Emma and Noah. The judge had already seen the video evidence, but now he heard from the court-appointed child psychologist who had been working with my kids. Her testimony was clear. The children experienced significant confusion and emotional distress due to Mrs. Wilson's actions. Mr. Wilson has provided a stable and nurturing environment since gaining primary custody. When Sarah took the stand, I watched as she tried to muster tears, tried to twist the story into something salvageable. I thought James wasn't their father, she said, voice trembling. I was confused. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. But even she knew those words rang hollow. The judge leaned forward, his expression stern but measured. Mrs. Wilson, he began, your confusion does not excuse your deliberate actions. You didn't seek clarification, you acted on false assumptions, and in doing so, you jeopardized the well-being of your children. He turned to me. Mr. Wilson, in light of the evidence and testimony presented, I am awarding you full legal and physical custody of Emma and Noah. I felt my chest tighten, not from fear, but from overwhelming relief. Mrs. Wilson, the judge continued, you will have supervised visitation with the possibility of reviewing these terms after a year of consistent counseling and demonstrated behavioral change. Sarah broke down in sobs, clutching at her attorney's arm, but there was no drama left to play out. The decision was final. As I walked out of that courtroom, I didn't feel victorious. This wasn't a win. It was survival. I had saved my children from a toxic environment, but the scars would take time to heal. Over the next few months, life slowly found a new rhythm. I fully embraced working from home, becoming the kind of father I had always wanted to be. Not just a provider, but a constant presence. Emma stopped mentioning Robert altogether. Noah, in his innocence, seemed to bounce back quicker, but I could still see the lingering uncertainty in their eyes sometimes. That's why therapy remained a priority for all of us. Sarah kept to the court-ordered visits, but they were strained formal. The woman who once thought she could rewrite the narrative now sat in supervised rooms, trying to reconnect with the children she had nearly alienated completely. I won't lie. There were nights when the weight of it all hit me. When the house felt too quiet after the kids went to bed, and I found myself staring at old family photos, wondering how things had gone so wrong. But then I'd hear little footsteps padding down the hall, Emma needing a glass of water, or Noah wanting to show me a drawing he made. And I'd remember exactly why I fought so hard. It wasn't about punishing Sarah. It wasn't even about revenge. It was about protecting the bond no one could take from me, the bond of a father and his children. One evening, as I tucked Emma into bed, she looked up at me with those big, thoughtful eyes and asked, "Daddy, are you staying home forever now?" I smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Yeah, sweetheart, I'm not going anywhere." That simple exchange meant more to me than any courtroom victory ever could. The fallout from Sarah's betrayal would linger, but I knew we were on the path to healing. And for the first time in a long while, I felt hope, not just for me, but for the future I was rebuilding with my kids. Brick by brick, day by day. Together, it's been over a year since that final court ruling. Some days, it feels like a lifetime ago. Other days, the memories creep back, the betrayal, the lies, the nights I questioned everything I thought I knew. But when I look at Emma and Noah, now I don't see victims of a broken home. I see resilience. I see two kids who, despite the chaos, found stability in the one place that mattered most. Love. We're not the same family we once were. And maybe that's a good thing. I've learned that being present isn't just about showing up after work or providing a roof over their heads. It's about being there emotionally, mentally, every single day. Working from home gave me that chance. I became part of their daily lives in ways I never thought possible: school projects, afternoon walks, silly kitchen dance parties. The little moments I used to miss are now the foundation of our bond. As for Sarah, she's still working through her counseling sessions. The supervised visits continue, but they're more of a formality now. The kids have set their own boundaries and I don't interfere. I won't poison them against their mother, but I also won't rewrite history. They deserve the truth in time, and in a way they can understand. If there's one thing this journey has taught me, it's this. Trust is precious, and once broken, it rarely returns the same. But calm, thinking patience, and protecting what truly matters will always outweigh emotional reactions. I could have exploded when I found out about the affair. I could have stormed out, leaving my kids vulnerable to whatever story Sarah wanted to spin. But I didn't. I stayed. I watched. I planned. And because of that, I was able to shield my children from a future built on lies. So if you ever find yourself betrayed by the person you thought would stand by you forever, remember, revenge isn't about rage. It's about reclaiming your life piece by piece with clarity and purpose. Today, I'm not just a single father. I'm a stronger man, a better dad, and someone who understands the value of choosing how to respond when your world falls apart. Because sometimes the best revenge is simply building a better life without the people who tried to destroy you.